You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Thursday, September 21st, and it's game day, faithful, and I've got a busy day of content for you, starting your morning with this show right here, Thursday night football preview show with none other than Rob Stats Guererra. How you doing today, Rob?
Steph, I'm excited, baby. It's week 3. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, it's the 49ers home opener. For all of you going to the game, it seems like the weather is going to be nice. It's going to be about 75 degrees around the start of the game, just under 70 degrees by the end. And I officially miss Bay Area weather. But that's neither here nor there. Me and Rob will be out there pretty soon for that week 5 game. I'm excited about that. But yeah, we got a game to talk about today. First, let's look at the injury report for the 49ers because quite some notable ones on both sides here. Brandon Ayuk, as we know, is dealing with his shoulder injury. It's been described more as like a pain tolerance thing. And like, regardless of how you feel about him playing on a short week this early in a long season, I think he is on the positive side of questionable, like just my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but he was limited in Tuesday's walkthrough session. And, you know, even if he's out as a decoy, I think like I think he's going to be active for this one. What do you think, Rob?
I think I agree with your assessment that he's trending in the right direction. You know, Shanahan said after the game that if they would have had practice in the first injury report, he wouldn't have gone. And then he was limited. So like he's technically progressing on the right side of things through the week. I personally wouldn't play him, but considering he did finish the game, he played through the game last week and he's trending in the right direction now. I agree with you that it looks like he'll be out there.
Right. Technic Chic says, why did the thumbnail remind me of the ghost quote, Molly, you in danger, girl? For me, I was going for the Simpsons like meme or like standstill thing. It says, I'm in danger, and he's on the bus or something like that. So that's what I was going for. That's Daniel Jones going into this game. We'll talk more about that. But the other injury for the 49ers is Ambry Thomas. Josina Anderson last night reported that he's expected to play. I would imagine he's expected to be active, but I mean, I don't expect him to play because based on what we saw from Isaiah Oliver to end that game last week, I would say he did enough to keep that spot. And I would feel a whole lot more comfortable if, you know, they kept Lenore on the outside and Oliver again, if he can play like the second half version of him last week, I'd feel a lot better about that than having Ambry Thomas on the outside. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't even know if I want Ambry Thomas to be active for this week. He has really struggled. They both struggled, but you're right. Oliver did make a few plays last week, and you'd like to think that he can build off of that. This is a guy that Steve Wilks really wanted in the offseason as a free agent target. He called him the best available nickel corner on the market, and he has struggled from the jump to the point where Kyle Shanahan flat out said he's not a guaranteed starter, and that's not something you usually hear about one of your choice free agent targets. So I hope he can build off of it. Steve Wilks obviously saw something in him to want to bring him to San Francisco. So hopefully he plays and gets run and, you know, can just be competent. He doesn't have to be a Pro Bowler out there. Just be an NFL league average nickel cornerback.
Yeah, I sensed a lot of like passive aggressiveness anytime that like Kyle would talk about like the corner situation and what's going on there. And yeah, I mean, he's probably not too happy about how Isaiah Oliver has fared up to this point. But again, based on what he did, he made some big plays down the stretch there against that Rams game. We're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I would expect him to start at nickel. But all right, on the Giants side, Saquon Barkley, the Giants' star running back, he was declared out dealing with that ankle injury. That's likely going to keep him out for a few weeks. So I thought it was, pretty amusing that DeBoer tried to make it seem like he just might play for this game. He was declared out yesterday, as was their starting left tackle, Andrew Thomas, and their starting left guard, Ben Bredeson. So, man, I think we should just dive right into what those injuries could mean for the Giants and their offensive line in this matchup. And I've got news for them. It's not good. Daniel Jones, for one, has a passer rating of 99.3 from a clean pocket. That's pretty good, right? Like that's admirable. But it drops down to 26.2 when he's under pressure. And again, like the news that I have for him is he's going to be under pressure quite a lot in this game. Through the first 2 weeks of the season, Daniel Jones has been pressured the third most, sacked the second most, and defenders have made contact with him the most in the NFL. He was pressured on 38% of his dropbacks and 10 sacks taken. Cowboys, who are, I would say, like just as much of a dominant defense as the 49ers, probably, they forced 39 pressures and 7 sacks in that week 1 game. That was an ugly game. And so I'm expecting that we probably see the Giants look more like that version than the week 2 version. But even the week 2 version was just ugly. And I was watching that game on NFL Network. They replayed it yesterday. I don't know why I did this to myself. Both teams were terrible. It was atrocious. They were having a mid-off. But going back to the matchup for this defensive line, you add on the fact that they'll be without 2 starters on the left side of their offensive line, and you add the fact that they're playing Nick Bosa and company. And by the way, you add this fact too, Daniel Jones holds on to the football for too long. Last season, he had one of the slowest times to throw at 3.03 seconds. This season so far, he's 9th slowest at 2.92 seconds. That won't help him against this 49ers defense.
Absolutely not. He could be in for a world of hurt, especially with Saquon being out also. Your running backs are key in pass protection, and now you're not even going to have that aspect of it. And so it could be rough for Daniel Jones and the Giants. What I want to see, though, is I need interior pass rush in this game because we know Bosa is going to pressure Daniel Jones. But if you don't get that interior pass rush, Jones is going to be able to escape. If you get Bosa coming off the edge and you get Hargrave and Armstead pushing up the middle, there's nowhere for Daniel Jones to go except out to Drake Jackson's side. And the one thing Drake Jackson is really good at, or one of the things I should say, is he's great against guys in space. He can separate from blocks, he can move, and he can run people down. He's incredibly athletic. So I think you're going to need that interior push from the middle of the defensive line.
Yeah, and we mentioned it with Barkley being out, this will look like a slightly different team. Daniel Jones, will probably look like a different quarterback as well. He has historically struggled without Barkley being out there. His quarterback rating drops by 11 points without Barkley. And so, I think we'll also see plenty of Matt Breida tonight. That name rings a bell. Maybe we get a revenge game, but I think it's more likely that we see the Giants deploy a committee at running back. So I'm not really worried about the run game, but as you mentioned, Rob, I think it's a reason to be concerned. Daniel Jones' ability to run, and when things break down, he does not hesitate. He has the second highest scramble rate in the NFL, behind only Lamar Jackson. So he's very trigger happy when it comes to running off with the football. And Steve Wilks has faced Daniel Jones as Carolina's defensive coordinator in week 2 of last season. Based on what I saw, I think that's the only time that Steve Wilks and his defense has faced Daniel Jones. And Jones had 21 rushing yards on 4 attempts in that game, which doesn't seem like a lot, right? Like you think 21 rushing yards, we can live with that. But the thing to keep in mind, all those 4 attempts went for a first down, or they picked up a first down. So those are the things you have to be mindful of and you have to be cautious of. He did the same thing last week against the Arizona Cardinals. He had 5 runs, all picked up first downs, 59 total yards, a touchdown on the ground as well. So that's what you got to be mindful of. It's not just about how many total yards are you allowing him to run. It's also about the situation and making sure, he doesn't find a way to stay on the field with this offense. And, I 100% expect that the Giants are going to, try to get him out in space, try to get him running with the football, because that might just be their best shot at moving the ball against this 49ers defense.
Yeah, he's their best weapon right now with Saquon out. He's the most dangerous weapon on the field. He's going to get his rushing some of the time. He's an incredible runner with the football, right up there with anybody you want to say. He's fast and he's big. That's a good combination for a running quarterback. So he's going to do it some of the time. But like you said, I think the first down, how many rushing first downs does he get might be the more critical number than just the raw yardage total. And that's why I think it's really important for the Niners to get up by 2 scores as fast as possible, because then you force him to have to pass more. And if you force Daniel Jones to have to pass more, you will get the football, because his interception rate right now is almost 5%, which is by far leading the league. And I know it's early. I know it's a small sample, but that's what I do if I'm Steve Wilks. Make him a thrower as much as possible.
Yeah, the Giants also have their new tight end in Darren Waller, who they signed this offseason. Or was it via trade? I think it was via trade. So he's, contributed for them through these first 2 weeks. He has 9 catches, 119 yards through 2 weeks. Nick Bosa said he had some great things to say, I think, about this matchup. I put one of the quotes up earlier, but he also said, quote, "If we can pressure him a lot and keep his completion percentage down, then we have a good chance." And to go along with that, the only times that Jones completed less than 60% of his attempts and won was back in 2020. And they just barely came away with a win there against the Bengals. So to Bosa's point, keep that completion percentage down for Jones, keep him in the pocket. And I think, the rest will kind of sort itself out. But let's talk about the 49ers offense, because you mentioned, Rob, they got to score early and get a lead here. And I do expect that the 49ers offense should have a really good day on this one. Through the first 2 weeks of the season, I think it all starts with Christian McCaffrey, right? Like, he's been a beast through these first 2 weeks. He has 39.3% of the 49ers total scrimmage yards through these first 2 weeks. And look, I do also expect that we'll see some Elijah Mitchell mixed in. I know a lot of people have brought up the fact that McCaffrey, he's been out there a lot. And so I don't blame Kyle for that. But on a short week after, what was a volume heavy day for him just a few days ago on Sunday, I think it would be smart to bring in some Elijah Mitchell. And maybe Mitchell was still working back from that injury, right? It was a groin injury for him. Same thing that Kittle was dealing with. Kittle's also been kind of quiet through these first 2 weeks. So maybe now they're feeling like, okay, maybe those guys are a little closer to 100%. But the reason that I think both McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell are going to be important in this one, the Giants are 26th in rushing yards allowed per game so far this year. They're allowing an average of 136.5 yards per game, 4.6 yards per attempt. If we know anything about this running game of the 49ers, they're going to eat that up.
I hope so, because that's the easiest path to victory.
Yeah.
Put in Christian McCaffrey. If you could, the perfect script is put in McCaffrey, drive down the field, first possession, get a touchdown. Then you can really spell Elijah Mitchell. And by the way, it's not like, Elijah Mitchell is some stiff, right? Some terrible guy that, you just have to rest McCaffrey. No, he's really good. I know there's a drop off because McCaffrey is incredible, but you still have a really good runner there. They could play if McCaffrey had to, if Mitchell had to just start in this game and play, the 49ers rushing attack would be just fine. So hopefully you can get McCaffrey in, build a lead, then give him a little bit of a break, put in Mitchell, put in Jordan Mason, and just grind these guys down. Because with just one thing we know about Kyle, if Kyle can run on you, he will press until it hurts. He will run it to death. And so hopefully,
bully ball, baby. It's bully ball.
Like your podcast on Tuesdays.
On around 7 a.m., sometimes 8 a.m. Pacific every Tuesday. Tune into that. But yeah, I mean, I think both of these guys are going to be huge for this game. And because so much attention goes to McCaffrey and all this game planning is centered around McCaffrey, on the defensive side of the ball, I think when Elijah Mitchell goes in, at least when we saw them both in the games, and it wasn't too much that we saw them both healthy in one game, right? But I think that teams kind of forget how good Elijah Mitchell is, and he's no slouch. He can make you pay for it as well. So if any defense is going into it and thinking, oh, okay, it's not McCaffrey, we can ease up a little bit here. No, they're wrong. Because also the blocking for this team up front has been incredible. As we know, the receivers are also really good at blocking. We've seen that through 2 weeks. So McCaffrey, he has 200 yards after contact just outside the tackles in his first 2 weeks of the season. That's 86 more yards than any other player so far. So, yeah, I expect McCaffrey to have a big game, but also if Elijah Mitchell gets mixed in, he's going to have a big game as well. Now, as for Brock Purdy, I think he bounces back in a major way. And like, look, I don't think he had that bad of a game on Sunday. So, maybe bouncing back is, too strong of a phrase there, but I think he's going to have a really good game in this one. And this is a good matchup to do it. Because the Giants don't have any sacks yet this season. And this is despite them blitzing more than any other team in the NFL. Since the start of 2022, they've blitzed 40% of the time. And that shouldn't be a concern for Brock Purdy because he's the only quarterback that has the only quarterback that has a quarterback rating higher than him against the blitz is Patrick Mahomes. So pretty good, right? So yeah, Brock has a 84.2 QBR against the blitz dating back to last year. So, and I think that goes back to Brock being so cool, calm, and collected. He knows where his guys are, what routes they're running, the timing of everything. He has really great sense for all of those things. And so I think when, he gets pressure in his face, blitzes, guys like that, I think he knows where to go with the football and he can get rid of it quickly. So I think this is going to be fine for him. And 7th lowest completion percentage allowed is what the Giants have been allowing this year, which is actually kind of surprising. They've also allowed the least amount of passing touchdowns through the first 2 weeks. So, maybe, again, this goes back to the running game, maybe being important to get you down the field. But I was just curious. I looked at how many yards they're allowing quarterbacks to throw, on each attempt, and they're 28th in opponent yards per completion, an average of 10.9 yards allowed on every throw. And what have we learned about Brock Purdy in his career? He's nails throwing between 10 to 19 yards. So, if Purdy has to pick up a first down, I think he should be able to do it against this Giants defense.
The weird thing about Brock Purdy, he does not throw for a lot of yards. Do you know in his career, he throws for 163 yards per game? Now, some of that's because the Niners are so good at running the ball, but also like he doesn't really generally put up that many yards, but I think he is going to bounce back in this one. I think he's going to benefit from the fact that for the first time this season, the 49ers are not facing a cream of the crop A++ pass rusher. In week 1, it was TJ Watt. In week 2, it was Aaron Donald. The Giants have some good defensive linemen up front, Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, but they're not TJ Watt, Aaron Donald level. And so I think there's just going to be an element of, exhale a little bit. Like, let's just, relax just a little bit more. Maybe Colton McKivitz isn't going to get beat on every single rep. And I think he's going to have a bounce back game. I predict he'll have at least one touchdown pass. He may even have one running as well. And again, like we've been saying all week, last week was not a bad game. It was just his arguably worst game. And I think he'll be fine this week.
Yeah. And if you were to ask me who would be an X factor in this game, I'm kind of looking at someone who people maybe are forgetting about. And I mentioned him earlier. He's been quiet through 2 games. And to me, that's when he's about to break free. And that is George Kittle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wearing my George Kittle shirt today. So
Yeah.
I am manifesting this. All right. And, Jay also brought it up, earlier this week on Bully Ball. Another shameless plug for our Tuesday show. Make sure you guys tune in. But no, I mean, he mentioned the fact that, Kittle has had historically some pretty good games on Thursday Night Football. And I'm putting his Thursday Night Football stats up on the screen. But the Giants defense gave up 88 yards last week to Zach Ertz and Trey McBride. Look, we saw Ayuk score twice in week 1. Debo had that rushing score in week 2. Maybe Brandon Ayuk is now 100% in this game. I want Kittle in this one. I think it's his turn this week. And yeah, Kittle has had those nice Thursday Night Football games last year against Seattle in December. He had 93 yards, 2 touchdowns. So I'm really hoping and thinking this could be a Kittle game.
He always has those like 1 to 3 games a year where he goes absolutely berserk and
Yeah.
just wins you your fantasy week and just goes crazy. I definitely think this could be one of those games, especially if Ayuk doesn't play. And I always say this, and it's so frustrating. Blocking is the second best thing George Kittle does. He's an incredible receiving tight end. And because of what I mentioned earlier, the fact that the Giants don't have that elite pass rusher, I think that's going to free George Kittle up a little more than he has been in the first 2 weeks to run some more routes, potentially get open. I mean, this is a guy that can win games for you by himself, let alone all the guys he's surrounded by. Let's take George Kittle out of the packaging. Let's use him, make him earn some of that incredible contract that he has, and let's put the Giants away early. Get up early and just bludgeon these people. And then the Niners will have 3 wins in the season's first 15 days.
I think they could do it. A lot of people have been talking about like this being potentially a trap game. And I think just by virtue of it being on Thursday Night Football, like I think that's the trap game in itself, not so much like us going up against the Giants. You know, I just don't respect the Giants like that to be too worried about this matchup, especially without Saquon Barkley, right? Maybe if Barkley was there, it'd be a different story. But what I've seen from the Giants through 2 weeks, like they look like a bad football team. And again, like I look more closely at how the Giants looked against the Cowboys because I feel like the Cowboys are in a tier, similar or very close to the 49ers, right? Their defense and particularly their pass rush has performed better than the 49ers through these first 2 weeks. So looking at that week 1 game, I mean, the Cowboys won that one based on their special teams and their defense, and it was suffocating. I turned that game off. Like it didn't take long either because the Cowboys just went up so quickly in that game, and the Giants had no chance after that pretty much. So I do expect that, the 49ers should get up early. I almost feel like because that game on Sunday against the Rams was a little bit tougher than expected, they kind of got that out of the way. Like they're not going to go into this game like messing around or, thinking that they're going to beat this team. Like it's almost like you can't think that you're too good of a team going into it. You have to play your best football going into it. You have to believe there's a chance this team could score some points on us. There's a chance this team could beat us. We got to put our best foot forward. And so I think based on how the Rams game went, how close that game was, I don't think they're going to mess around in this Thursday night game.
Particularly the defense, right? Steve Wilkes had a great quote this week. He said, once I got a feel for the game, I adjusted in the second half and they shut the Rams down. And this is something that Kyle Posey brought up with me yesterday. Steve Wilkes is still kind of learning this defense and learning the players. He's not running his system. He's running the 49ers system. He's learning how the players operate in that system and what they do best. And I almost wonder if last week for Wilkes was like, look, we are not a sit back and zone kind of team. Like we are a get up on receivers, pressure them, don't give them free releases to give our pass rush more time to get home. And then they did that last week, and it was great in the second half against the Rams. So I almost wonder if maybe Wilkes learned a little something last week, and this week he's going to be like, all right, screw it. Let's just go out, and we're going to press these guys. We don't have to worry about any of the Giants receivers. They're not very scary, and let's just eat them up. And I hope that's what they do. I hope the defense suffocates the Giants tonight.
Yeah, I think so too. And okay, going back to Daniel Jones really quickly, and this being a primetime game under the bright lights, he hasn't been so hot in primetime games. He's 1-10 as a starter in primetime. His most recent loss, that week 1 game against the Cowboys, Monday Night Football, that was ugly. So I think, taking care of the football is going to be key for both sides. I mean, but obviously the 49ers have the advantage there. And I think that's where you can break down this Giants offense. The 49ers on average, just 0.5 giveaways per game. So they're in the top 10 there. They take care of the football. That's good. The Giants have averaged a perfect 2 giveaways per game. So, and guess how many takeaways the 49ers have been averaging per game?
That would be 2.
That would be 2. Yeah. So the Giants defense has 0 takeaways through 2 games. That's another thing to be mindful of in this one. And like they're just not making any momentum shifting plays through 2 weeks. And that's why I think the 49ers will beat them in a demoralizing fashion. They should, right? Like and my score prediction in this one is 33-10. Maybe 33-13 if the ball pulls a Sean McVay.
Well, I do think that that still pisses me off. I do think we're going to see a kitchen sink game from Brian Daboll. I think he's going to go reverse, double pass, maybe try a Philly special to get Daniel Jones a reception. Like, I think he knows we can't beat the 49ers if we just go about this conventionally. We have to, maybe a fake on special teams, fake field goal, fake punt, that kind of a thing. I think he knows they've got to pull out all the stops because they're just, especially with the starters that they're going to be missing in this one, they don't have a chance really if they try to do it any other way.
Yeah. And shout out to Gammon for the donation. He says, I don't like to overlook opponents or look down on individuals. However, maybe you were voice dictating there. However, 49ers historically play lights out in primetime games. It's a home opener to boot. If anyone thinks the Giants win are nuttier than squirrel poop. Woo-hoo. Yeah, I mean, it's fine for me, Rob, you, all of us here listening to underestimate the Giants because we're not playing against them. We can talk crap all day. It's not gonna really come back to do anything to us. But the 49ers, like as I was just saying, like they have to respect the Giants. When you play them on the field, you can't get cute. You can't just assume just because we're the better team we're going to win this game, because that's not how the NFL works. You still have to play well. So, I mean, I really don't think the 49ers are going to overlook the Giants, and for that reason, yeah, they're going to stomp them, I think, and the whole world's going to be watching.
I think the defense is going to want to play better than they did last week because they started slow. And I think Brock is going to want to play better. So I don't, I think that there's motivation on both sides of the ball for the 49ers. And can I just say this, please? Anyone on special teams, Ray McLeod, I'm looking right at you. Hold on to the goddamn ball, please. Because that's the equalizer, right? You muff punts, you fumble kickoff returns, you set the other team up in their own, in their red zone. That's how a bad team can beat a good team. So please call fair catches, whatever you got to do. Just hang on to the damn ball.
Kyle just needs to play the Kyle Williams muffed punt video, and they'll learn their lesson. That play still lives rent free in my head, that whole game. But
yeah, I remember it well.
Yeah, me too. Too well. Rob, do you have any score predictions for this one?
Yeah, I think the Niners, Brock Purdy has only ever failed to put up 30 points in one start in his career, and it was a Thursday game in Seattle with broken ribs where they didn't even know if he was going to be able to throw a half hour before the game. So until that streak kind of ends, I'm going with the Niners scoring 30 again. Give me San Francisco 33-13. I'll go 33-13.
That was really close to mine because I said 33-10, but if he pulls a McVay, it's going to be 33-13.
I think they're going to whoop them. Maybe the Giants can go down the field on the opening drive and steal a field goal, but between Daniel Jones under pressure, between the Niners defense wanting to just suffocate people, between Daniel Jones potentially turning the ball over, I don't see how the Giants are going to score enough against this offense for the Niners, which I think, like I said, I think Brock is going to be on a little like, all right, everybody's saying I had a bad game. Now I'm in prime time and I'm going to dice these fools up.
He's going to be focused and I can't wait. It's going to be vintage Brock.
Let me ask you a question, vintage Brock, after 9 games? Do you think Brock's going to take a couple deep shots? Because he seemed a little ticked off to me at the questions about the deep ball. And I almost wonder if, because he's got a little of that, like, screw you type in him. Like, oh, was that Patrick Peterson on the set? Like, he knew. So do you think he takes a couple deep shots tonight?
Look, I think the questions as far as, like, the deep shots go were fair. I mean, he knows it. He knows he was going to get questioned about it. And I liked his answers in regards to it. So I've been thinking about this, and I hope he doesn't force the deep shots
Mhm.
because that's what you don't want. Like let them come to you. If it's there, it's there. There's no reason to force it. How many deep shots have we even seen Brock attempt?
3?
Yeah, right? In like one game pretty much. So
Yeah.
so like I kind of don't. I don't expect it to be there in this game just because like it wasn't something he attempted a whole lot, before that game. So I think he'll hit it eventually and he's going to have his, revenge or whatever you want to call it. He'll have that moment eventually, but I don't think forcing it is the right way to go about it. So I hope
Yeah,
not.
I agree with you there. I mean, look, we know that Kyle can dial him up if he wants to, but like the question is like, do you really need to? Would you rather take a deep ball shot with Brock, which maybe it's not as reliable, or would you have him throw between 10 and 20 yards where he's basically a damn surgeon out there and you're still going to get, 5, 10, maybe 15 yards after the catch anyway. So the yardage is, could arguably be the same. Though I just don't think you need to overextend yourself in that way. It struck me because I felt like he was a little annoyed by some of the questions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he was. I think he was more annoyed by the fact he didn't hit them. Like that was more annoying to him than hit him getting asked about it. He knew he'd get asked about it. He can take criticism and I think like people questioning him, but he looked pissed off on the field when he missed them too. I mean, he knows he should have hit those. Technique Chic asks, would you consider the 2 touchdown passes against the Bucks last year to be deep shots? I don't remember how many yards that was. So
Yeah, the one to McCaffrey was
he had the
definitely a deep
McCaffrey. That was
shot.
27 yards.
And then
And then
he
he
has
had
Ayuk, right?
32 yards. Deep shots.
Not as deep as in my head, they're deeper. When you
Yeah, I
said those,
know. Like
I was like, damn.
it's not about how many yards, it's about feel. Like if I feel that it's deep, then it's deep. So, no, I mean, the attempts this past week on Sunday, like how many yards would have been for? I don't
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head.
they seemed deep. They were deeper. They were deeper. So,
Right.
it's not that he can't hit them. Like, yeah, I mean, 32 yards, that's a respectable amount, and
Right. It's
he's
not like
he's
it was an
done this before.
80-yard bomb.
Yeah, no, I don't think we'll ever really see that from Brock, but
No,
yeah,
I don't think so.
so
But they don't need it. They don't
they
need it.
don't.
Just do what you do, and this Giants team should be just, fodder for you. I don't care that they made the playoffs last year. I was never high on the Giants. I just have no respect for them. I don't. I don't have respect for them as a football team. I don't have respect for their quarterback. The fact that they are paying Daniel Jones $40 million is insane to me. Like that is the worst. I would have been furious if I was a Giant fan. $40 million for that. The dude has only ever had 1 year in his career with more touchdown passes than starts. And they only play 17 games. So that ain't worth 40 million to me.
But Brian DeBoer's gonna unlock him, and he's gonna take a step forward this year.
Yeah,
I will
great.
say this. I'll say this about Daniel Jones because when I watched that game against the Cardinals, um, he does try some deep shots. He does. So he is aggressive. He's more aggressive than Brock Purdy is. So I think on the back end, the 49ers just again, like we said, they have to be mindful of his running, but also, when he takes those deep shots, intercept the ball or, just bat it down because he is going to try them. So they'll be there this game. All
No
right.
flags. No flags, boys.
Yeah, no flags, please. No flags. Right. Like I think that's the show for today. I mean, I think we've pretty much covered everything. Like I really didn't have too many like bad matchups to preview for this game. Like I don't know. Like maybe I don't know too much about the Giants, but I looked at, some of their rankings and all that and I spoke about some of the things, but yeah, I think the 49ers have all of the advantage here. So, yeah, I think they're going to come away with it, but all you guys who tuned in, thank you for tuning in. I know it's early, so I appreciate it. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And like I said, it's a busy day for all of us. I have the Two Goats show later with Mariah happening before the game. And then for post game, I'll be joined by Akash right here on my channel. So be sure to tune into those. Subscribe to Gold Standard Network on YouTube as well to stay up on all of Rob's content. Yeah, look at him. He's excited. New shows every day of the week. He's going to have a post-game show as well. His channel is linked in the description. If you guys are going to the game tonight, have fun, be safe. But if you're watching on TV, have fun, be safe, and have a good rest of your Thursday night, folks. Peace.